Hello, welcome to Venture Capital. In this week's show, we talk Iran. The country has entered its 6-month interim deal that was struck with world powers to partially lift the oil sanctions that were originally enforced over the country's nuclear program. But what does it mean for the rest of the country's industries other than oil and the 75 million population? We'll analyse the future of the country's economy. Plus, the world has been expecting it. But is it ready? Yesterday, the Federal Reserve turns the stimulus tap even further towards the off button by reducing its $1 billion stimulus program. As expected, it's the emerging economies that are suffering, especially their currencies. We've got corporate news on the way, and Sochi is about to kick off, and we keep track of the costs. So Iran is open for business. That is the message from the country's leader, Hassan Rouhani. An estimated $7 billion worth of international sanctions against Iran's crippled economy will be eased over the next 6 months in anticipation for a final settlement. Now, in exchange, Iran agreed to slow its uranium enrichment program to a level that is far below what would be necessary to make a nuclear bomb, as well as open up the country to international inspections to ease the minds of world leaders who suspect Iran of trying to build weapons in secret. Now, global oil majors are already discussing Tehran's business potential.
Iran has lots of resources, and these resources need investment and technology and capability. So when the sanctions are over and the Western and service companies are allowed to go in, provided the Iranian government puts in place commercial models that are attractive to invest in the country, I think there will be plenty of potential. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year, but hopefully, depending on how the political process goes, in the medium term, I think it will happen.
But much depends on how the deal is delivered throughout the next 6 months, depending on as and when Iran completes its promised destruction of higher-grade uranium. And according to the head of French oil major Total, any signing of oil deals is premature.
There have been this message coming from the President Rouhani to tell CEOs of oil and gas companies, be ready. We are ready to offer you new terms. Good. First, we need to see what are they. And second, with the embargo, we cannot do anything. So the priority is definitely how the negotiations are moving on the political side and nuclear. Then we will see, but definitely we come second. And it's good to hear this message. I hope it will be considered by those in charge as a message. If they want to move on oil and gas contracts, it means that they know they have to solve the issue on nuclear, because otherwise there will be no opportunities for us. But for the time being is wait and see.
We've heard from Total. Let's hear from Anis Abazid, right here from the Arabic Channel, our Middle East expert. Listen, there was a lot of excitement going on with the oil and gas industry in Davos. I've just got back there, so have you. Rouhani was talking about the fact that he thinks his economy can make the top 10 in the next 3 decades. Tell me, with the reserves, with the population, is it feasible?
Iran's 2 neighbors, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, they are members of G20, as we all know. Okay, Iran has similar vast oil and gas reserves similar to Saudi Arabia, and it has a vibrant and big population of almost 80 million people, similar to Turkey. So why can't it make its way to the G20 at least? So the opportunity, the possibilities are there, but the question is whether it will have the chance to unleash them. That's the question.
Now, listen, we know about the potentials for the oil and gas industry. That's why everyone is so excited. But what about other industries in the country? What can we hope to happen there? What potentials are there?
Okay, just to name a few, car industry. There's a big market in Iran for car makers. Specifically, perhaps European car makers would make a lot of it. Peugeot had sold 450,000 cars in Iran back in 2011 before the sanctions. Renault had sold 100,000 cars. So that perhaps explains why there's ongoing talk about a French business delegation preparing to go to Iran in next month.
Yeah, that would explain that one, yeah.
Yes. Another lucrative sector could be civil aviation industry. Iran has an ailing fleet of 240 civilian aircrafts.
Wow.
All of these were purchased 3 decades ago. So there's opportunity, of course, to sell about few hundreds of new civil aircraft to Iran.
Yeah,
so
big money as well.
That's big money. Yeah.
Aircraft,
Yes.
absolutely. Also scary stuff. You want to know you're in a good quality aircraft when you fly. Listen, moving on, I want to talk about Iranians as well, because how will their lives be affected by all of this? We know about the industries. I'm talking about when they go to the supermarket. How will life change on a daily basis for these people without sanctions in their lives?
One of the vital issues, in fact, is imported pharmaceuticals. Because of, well, the ailing rial and because of the inflation, which is almost 40%, annual inflation, 40%, can you imagine?
One of the highest in the world.
Yes, and basically because of sanctions on financial transactions, many vital pharmaceuticals are no longer available in Iranian pharmacies.
Yeah.
And if they do, that's really hard to get them because of the prices I told you.
Yeah, of course.
So the Iranian people, well, bear the hardship of the sanctions.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about pharmaceuticals, you're talking about people's lives, people's health. It's a very sensitive topic, and certainly lots to hope for in that case. It's Anise from RT's Arabic channel. Thank you. And moving on then, this week, the US Federal Reserve shrugged off emerging market turmoil by taking further steps to reduce the billion-dollar asset buying program that was originally introduced to rescue the US from economic collapse. But the strategy proved addictive, not just for the US, but the globe, and lasted for over 5 years. Now, the monthly asset purchases have now been slashed by another $10 billion to $65 billion. That's down from the initial $85 billion. Now, as a consequence, emerging economy currencies are plummeting, especially the Russian ruble. I asked the chief economist of Saxo Bank why these markets are so vulnerable, and is all the blame on the Fed? We started talking about the ruble.
The crisis you see in the ruble is driven by Russian politics. Of course, it can get amplified by the world economic cycle, and I think it has. So if you take the ruble weakness, 50%, at least 50% is Russian-driven, and 50% is the external factors. The same is the case for China. So remember, the fact that a currency is being devalued in a lot of these economies, it is something which is actively pursued by the government. So in Russia, the central bank is indicating they want more flexible rates. I don't presume that they want more and stronger flexible rates. They want weaker flexible rates. In China, they haven't had a change in policy, but certainly in Indonesia, India, Brazil, South Africa, they're accepting lower currency as a means to reduce their dependence on capital, making their competitiveness increase by devaluing and by making imports more expensive, and that way rebalancing the trade balance.
So you're saying that a weaker currency is advantageous then?
No, I'm saying that is the policy tool everyone uses because it's accessible, it's quick, it's also dirty in the sense that it doesn't, if you get too much devaluation, you shy away from doing what you really need, which is reform and completely strengthen this business model which a country has. So say in the case of Russia, in the short term, Russia has accepted a weaker currency to increase the competitiveness. Have they done anything on the reforms? Absolutely not. So the best is a little bit of devaluation, a managed, controlled devaluation, and a lot of reforms. Unfortunately, we're getting a lot of devaluation and very little or no reforms at all.
But despite ruble woes, it's not all doom and gloom for Russia. Despite a rather rocky 2013, the country now follows the US and China as the third most attractive country for investors. Now, foreign investment into Russia reached a record $94 billion last year. That's a leap of 83% on the year before. This is according to a report by the United Nations. So 2014 is gearing up to be a better year, just after recently breaking into Bloomberg's top 50 countries for doing business. Now let's talk about corporate news. And if you're a regular of Venture Capital, a viewer to us, you'll know that often at this point in the show we talk about the banishment of Russian banks. It seems to be a weekly ongoing occurrence at the moment. So let's not break tradition, let's talk about it, because it's Moi Bank this time. Not my personal bank, no, but that's the actual name of the bank, as well as CB Nature Bank too. These two cases have become the 6th and 7th for this January. Both banks are under investigation as part of Russia's banking sector cleanup. And Russian companies that use the letter I in their logos are facing legal action from Apple. iBroker brand, a Russian insurance company, is the first to face court action. Now, if Apple wins, then the most valuable company in the world will gain $1,500 in compensation. Peanuts, or Apple Pips, I should say. And great news for online shoppers. That would be Moi this time. DHL says it will resume deliveries to Russia. Last week, the company, along with a number of other major express delivery firms, suspended shipments to Russia because of tougher customs rules. But the dispute has thankfully now been resolved. Now, the Sochi Olympic Games kicks off in just 5 days' time. Already a record breaker for the most expensive Olympic Games in history. At a call, $51 billion. Now, Sochi is almost 3 times the cost of the next most expensive Winter Games, which was held in 1998 in Japan. Now, the newly built transport links between the city of Sochi and the skiing events is estimated to have cost more than the entire budget for the 2010 Vancouver Winter Olympics. Whew. But despite blowing the budget, which was set at $12 billion, the investments are expected to be made back for decades to come. And the organisers are hoping to copy the Barcelona example, which, although it was a summer event, transformed the city. Now, I spoke to the mayor of Barcelona about the benefits his city is still reaping.
It was a big success. For Barcelona, the Olympic Games were excuse to change the city. And we changed all the city. We make a very interesting change in the city. We opened the city to the sea, to the Mediterranean Sea. And for us, it is very, very important. All happen after. You think we have until 91, 1 million people came to Barcelona, tourists came to Barcelona. Now, 7.5 million people came to Barcelona. It's a very, very important change. It puts in the world, Barcelona in the world. And for us, it's very important.
Amazing. I am really excited now because with no expense spared, we're all expecting a spectacular show. So the pressure is on the athletes and the investors as well. I'm really excited. Now, listen, join me on Twitter all week. I will be there keeping you updated. And I'm going to try and keep warm here in Moscow because it's been very cold indeed. But listen, have yourselves a great week. Goodbye.